Good evening. Welcome to WexMed Live. I am Dr. Carol Bradford, Dean of The Ohio State University College of Medicine and Vice President for Health Sciences at Wexner Medical Center. This is going to be a great evening featuring three of Ohio State's expert scientists. And I am excited that this WexMed Live is actually partially live. For the past 2 years, our presenters have actually pre-recorded their talks. But tonight, you will hear from our three researchers live on Zoom. You will learn how they, as a team, are addressing the unique needs of older adults with cancer. More than 50% of patients with cancer are over the age of 65. Understanding the impact of aging with a cancer diagnosis and treatment is critical to optimizing therapy and identifying factors to improve the cancer trajectory of older adults. The Cancer and Aging Resiliency Clinic, aptly called CARE, at the James Cancer Hospital is truly a world leader in treating older patients with cancer. And the team you are about to meet is dedicated to advancing healthcare delivery at the intersection of cancer and aging. So much of what we do in healthcare is a team approach. The team you will meet this evening is the very definition of team. They are a group of people with different skills who come together to achieve a common goal. I would like to personally thank each of them for joining us this evening and for sharing more about their remarkable work with our entire community. I would also like to personally thank all of you for your interest in and support of the Wexner Medical Center. I am so delighted you are here. Now I am really delighted to introduce our MC this evening. Dr. Peter Moeller is the Chief Scientific Officer of The Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center, Vice Dean for Research at the College of Medicine, and Vice President for Research at The Ohio State University. Dr. Moeller will introduce tonight's speakers. He will also lead a brief question and answer segment. Please feel free to submit your questions in the chat at any time during the event, and we will respond to as many questions as we can. Dr. Moeller.
Thank you, Dean Bradford, and what a great evening. Also a very great evening to be inside with the 100-degree heat out today in Columbus, Ohio. So if you're somewhere that is not in Columbus, I hope you're somewhere cool, and if you're not, hope you have a nice drink and spend the next hour with us hearing about really some of the incredible talent that's here at the Wexner Medical Center, James Cancer Hospital, and the Solove Research Institute. So excited to be here tonight. This is our 8th virtual event for WexMed Live, and in fact, our 16th WexMed Live that we've had in a whole host of different cities, and really an opportunity to talk about the great things happening every day across the Wexner Medical Center and the College of Medicine. So Dean Bradford, thank you for doing this, and we're going to see you a little bit later. For those of you who've never been to a WexMed Live, the format is a little bit different than listening to researchers or scientists for 45 minutes, short talks to see really the great things that are happening in real time. Also an opportunity, Dean Bradford, for us to get to know the scientists, the physician scientists, and in this case, as well as scientists that are working together every day at Wexner Medical Center. Would encourage everyone to make this as interactive as possible. So in your Zoom world, you'll see a chat at the bottom or a Q&A. Please use that opportunity to put those questions in the chat, and we will connect you at the end with the questions and answers to be able to do this work. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our three speakers for this evening. Three incredible team members that will be joining us. The first is Dr. Ashley Roscoe, an Oncogeriatrics medical director at the James Cancer Hospital and Solove Research Institute, and co-director of the Cancer and Aging Resiliency Clinic, the CARE Clinic. She's also associate professor of medicine in the Division of Hematology. So welcome. Our second is Dr. Christin Burd, who's the scientific director of Oncogeriatrics at the James Cancer Hospital and Solove Research Institute in the Comprehensive Cancer Center, associate professor of molecular genetics and cancer biology and genetics. So lots of titles. Welcome. And then our third speaker tonight will be Dr. Carolyn Presley, associate medical director of Oncogeriatrics at the James Cancer Hospital and Solove Research Institute, and co-director of the CARE Clinic and assistant professor in medicine in the Division of Medical Oncology. So welcome, Carolyn. It's good to see you all. And we have a short video to play that will set up the evening a little bit, and then we will go through some of the talks.
Gloria is an 80-year-old widow, complete with a large family and lots of grandchildren. She also has high blood pressure and trouble with sleeping. As a result, she takes 3 blood pressure medicines and 1 sleeping pill. One day, she wakes up from a restless night with a persistent cough. After a visit to her doctor and subsequent diagnostic tests, she is diagnosed with lung cancer. Despite her age and health complications, she wants to pursue treatment. But when she starts them, she starts to feel dizzy and weak. She isn't very hungry either. As a result, she can't get to the grocery store as often as she'd like, and she can't clean her house. Daily living activities like bathing, dressing, and just using a microwave for meals is exhausting. One day, she calls her daughter to take her to her doctor's appointment. When she gets out of the car, she feels dizzy, trips over the curb, and falls. Her daughter calls an ambulance to take her to the emergency room. She's given pain medication because her hip, which she has injured but not broken, is really painful. Also, while in the emergency department, she suddenly presents with low blood pressure and is now in kidney failure. She's admitted to the hospital for 10 days and then is finally sent to rehab. She comes back to see the clinic 1 month later to restart her lung cancer treatment. So, how do you treat a patient like this?
Hello. Today, the focus of our conversation is understanding the intersection of aging biology with chronic diseases like cancer. Patients just like Gloria are seen in our clinic every day. And just like each cancer is unique, each person's underlying health status is also different and not clearly defined by chronologic age. We talk a lot about aging. In fact, there's an unprecedented growth in the number of older adults. Americans age 65 and older is projected to nearly double, from 52 million to 95 million by 2060. The proportion of older persons in the population vary considerably by state. Here in Ohio, we are one of 9 states in which more than half the population will be 65 and older. I am a lifelong Ohioan and an oncologist, and this fact is particularly relevant. Cancer is the disease more commonly diagnosed in aging adults. An important part of what I do every day is being able to serve the community in which I grew up in and that I now treat. Aging impacts every aspect of the cancer care continuum, including the risk of developing a cancer, clinical decision-making for more or less intensive therapy, for clinical outcomes, including cancer complications and survivorship. With better supportive care and the advent of novel therapeutics, survival is improving across all ages. An integral aspect of caring for adults with cancer is to comprehensively address all aspects of health. We know that a diagnosis of cancer is an accelerant of frailty. Frailty occurs when there's a decline across multiple systems, making a patient more vulnerable to a stress like a cancer diagnosis. But we also know that frailty is not an inevitable part of cancer nor aging. An important fact about frailty is that it's measurable, it's dynamic, and it's potentially modifiable. An unmet need for our cancer community is the ability to address frailty systematically and comprehensively. We have created a cancer and aging resiliency clinic, a multidisciplinary model to identify age-related health conditions that impact the cancer trajectory. The clinic is a 7-member team focused on objectively measuring age-related needs and integrating a coordinated plan. The team consists of physicians focused on quality of life and what matters most, a physical therapist to be able to measure function, endurance, and strength, case managers to address social needs and resources, nurses who are trained to assess cognitive health and well-being, a pharmacist to reconcile medications and address polypharmacy, a dietitian to characterize weight loss and access to food, and an audiologist equipped with a sound booth to address hearing loss. All of this is in concert with a research team to improve health outcomes and be able to amplify exceptional cancer care. As such, this clinic is only a few in the nation to systematically deliver a coordinated approach to cancer and aging. Gauging health clinically is pivotal for our research to improve health outcomes, and importantly, integrating the basic science of aging allows us to identify new ways to understand how aging impacts cancer development and response to treatment. With that, I'd like to introduce you to my colleague and long-term collaborator, Dr. Christin Burd.
Thanks, Dr. Roscoe. When I think about patients like Gloria, I think about what's happening to her at the cellular level. Cells are the building blocks of our bodies, but as we age, more and more of them enter a state called senescence. Those cells are shown here in the picture in blue. Senescence occurs as a consequence of sustained physiologic stresses that our cells can no longer tolerate. Unfortunately, certain lifestyle choices, diseases, injuries, and psychosocial deficits can cause senescent cells to build up faster in the body. We call this accelerated biologic aging. As an example, accelerated biologic aging may cause Gloria to have more senescent cells than her best friend Bethany, who's also 80 years old. So why would it matter that Gloria has more senescent cells than Bethany? Well, unfortunately, senescent cells are essentially asleep. While other cells replicate and repair damaged tissues, senescent cells sit by the wayside and watch. This failure to help repair damaged tissues, along with the inflammatory signals produced by senescent cells, put Gloria at increased risk for many age-related diseases, including diabetes, cardiovascular disease, dementia, osteoporosis, and more. So how do I know Gloria's biologic age? Well, I can use the unique properties of senescent cells to estimate the number in her body. In the care clinic, we've developed methods to measure multiple proxies of senescence from a single tube of blood. We can measure inflammatory cytokines and monitor known changes in DNA modifications, chromosome ends, and gene activity in blood cells. Together, these measures give us an idea of Gloria's biologic age. We can also track how events in Gloria's life influence biologic aging. Here, for example, you can see that her chronologic and biologic ages were pretty equal until she developed cancer. This caused acceleration of her biologic aging, which was made even worse by her fall. So how do we help Gloria? As Dr. Roscoe mentioned, we can identify and correct health deficits that may be causing Gloria to age faster. And as we move into the future, provide customized nutritional, psychological, physical, and even drug-dependent plans to reverse or prevent biologic aging in our patients. Today, Dr. Presley is going to tell you how such a personalized and comprehensive approach benefited Gloria.
Thank you so much, Dr. Burd. So how could we have helped Gloria? If she had come to the care clinic, we would have been able to check her blood pressure, lying down, sitting, and then standing up. And if her blood pressure dropped, called orthostatic hypotension, we would have been able to review all of her medications and actually de-prescribe some of the blood pressure medications she was on. She was actually on 3. And often when patients, or older adults in particular, start a new cancer treatment, they may not actually need all of the medications that they were previously on. So bad things can happen, and that's called polypharmacy. So our pharmacists would have checked drug-drug interactions and would have looked for side effects as well. So our patients love it when we take away medications that they don't need to take anymore, because they often have to have more medications related to their cancer treatment and potential cancer treatment side effects. Our physical therapist would have seen and evaluated her and checked her balance and her gait and strength, and would have probably referred her to physical therapy, or she could have been offered enrollment in one of our supportive care clinical trials called ROAR. And our nutritionist, for example, could have evaluated what she was eating, and in the hot summer days like today, if she was taking in enough fluid or water. Often our older adults are at higher risk of getting dehydrated. So all of these things can actually contribute to not feeling well once you start cancer treatment. So maybe we could have actually prevented her fall and she wouldn't have ended up in the hospital. She started out functionally independent, taking care of herself, and then ended up needing help. Once she fell, was in the hospital, had low blood pressure, which led to kidney failure. It really started this cascade of events. So unfortunately, Gloria isn't unique, and we're seeing more and more patients just like her, these complicated older adults who then end up getting cancer. And the care clinic is specifically designed to improve outcomes and try to help older adults and their caregivers in a one-stop shopping model. We don't want cancer treatment and interacting with the healthcare system to become a full-time job for our patients and their caregivers. So the care clinic, as Dr. Roscoe mentioned, is one of 14 in the country currently, but we also have a great translational research component with Dr. Burd and our other basic science colleagues. So we not only go from the bedside to the bench, but we go from the bench back to the bedside in characterizing and trying to understand how our frailty and aging being accelerated by our cancer treatments. And so here at the Ohio State Comprehensive Cancer Center and the James Cancer Hospital and Solove Research Institute, we're really partnering with our local communities, the nation, and the world to improve care for older adults. So I'd really like to thank all of those who have gotten us this far in terms of your support and advocacy. And we invite all of you to participate in this groundbreaking research and programming. And with that, Dr. Moeller, we're happy to answer any questions.
Great. Well, let's bring our speakers back to the stage and our Dean Bradford. So first, incredible work, and want to thank the three of you as well as your teams for all the work that you're doing every day here at Ohio State. A bunch of questions. And we'll pepper you all. And so please feel free to jump in. And then if our audience members have questions, please add them to the chat as well. So first question is, Ohio State is a massive place. We always hear about how big Ohio State is. How did the three of you find each other?
I guess I'll start. So Christin and I actually met on a national call. So there's a cancer and aging research group that's nationally involved. And I had a question about T-cell aging, and actually the former NCI director came on and said, no worry, Dr. Christin Burd is there. She's going to help guide the way. And so that's actually how we met on the call. And Christin claims that I came to her office without a computer, but we've been working together since then. And then over the period of time through the Cancer and Aging Research Group Network, we met Carolyn Presley, who is just a powerhouse when it comes to medical oncology research and has such fantastic energy. And so we recruited her here at Ohio State to come work with us.
It's great. Question about, we've talked about the team. Typically, when you think about going into like a care clinic or a hospital, you walk into a room and there's physicians, there's nurses, there's staff. Maybe all of our people out there in Zoom world don't understand really the teams behind the, in the lab. So if you're at the James Cancer Hospital, huge biomedical research tower behind, maybe Dr. Burd, talk a little bit about the team that's doing this incredible wet bench research that's informing the clinical work.
Sure, yeah, this is a huge team effort. So we have a lot of different aging biomarkers that we're running together. And so getting all of those, going through the right pipelines for the particular analyses we need to do in the time frame that they need to be done after the collection in the clinic is quite involved. So we use a lot of cancer center core facilities that allow us to do really specialized high throughput assays, but we also partner with groups outside of the university to really get the highest quality, newest technology to our patients. So I would say we have people all the way from undergraduate researchers all the way to clinicians that are working in the lab and trying to learn some more pipetting, to PhD students and PIs like myself. So it's really a huge continuum and a large group, right, of people working together.
That's great. When you start a program, you start your faculty role, you start in academic medicine, a lot of the work that you talked about today as a team, like didn't exist before, right? There's no playbook, there's no, accelerated biological aging for dummies book that you can read. All of you in your labs and in your clinical labs to get started, a lot of this is sort of high risk, high reward because the papers aren't out there, and relies upon sort of philanthropic support to be able to do this. Can you talk a little bit about how some of that key preliminary data as you're starting your career is so important for sort of taking the next step to get your first big grant or your second big grant, or to be able to hire the teams that you heard about tonight? And maybe, I don't know, Dr. Roscoe or Dr. Presley, if you want to answer this one.
Yeah, sure, I can start. So philanthropy was absolutely how I was able to hire my first research coordinator. And that really helped generate the pilot data. This was the first study that I worked on with Dr. Roscoe and Dr. Burd, the fitness study. And really coming out of fellowship, this is my first faculty job, and having them not only as amazing scientists and collaborators, but also as friends, really helped me to get my start, along with my, incredible mentorship team. But having peer mentorship, was incredible. But really the first grant I wrote was a philanthropy based and funded my first research coordinator. So really without that, it would have been a lot harder to get started. Absolutely.
Dr. Roscoe, anything to add?
Yeah, I just would like to add, doing cross-disciplinary research is harder. I think it's easier for us to be able to stay in our silos and focus on, staying in the lab and doing basic science research. But, even that connection between the clinical front and what we do every day, it's harder. And so even like that pull to go outside of your disease and work across supportive care models, to work with the cancer control program, to be able to work across different divisions, departments, colleges, all creates more energy and more lift. And I think really it's a labor of love to be able to kind of build things from the ground up. We get to be able to interject how we'd like to build it and grow it, but it certainly requires a village to be able to make this to operationalize the work.
Okay, lots of questions coming in. This is awesome. So next question to the team, and please raise your hand or just hop in. You talked a lot about accelerated biological aging and the idea that you get these cells that are senescent, that are asleep. How do you bring them back, right? And so are there things that you can proactively do in terms of exercise, things that you can control, if you're to change the slope of that curve?
Yeah, so I can take that one. So a lot of the studies have shown that indeed exercise can help to mitigate this, and doesn't have to be crazy amounts of marathon running exercise, just enrolling in physical therapy and doing some basic exercises can really help slow accelerated aging. There's also some evidence that nutrition may be involved in that process, but most exciting, I think, for me right now is the up and coming field of xenotherapies, which are drugs that actually will kill the senescent cells in your body. So just imagine popping a pill for a week or so, and then all of a sudden you're 10 years younger. That's what we hope to do here. And we hope to reverse all of the biologic aging that occurs as individuals go through the stresses of cancer treatment and cancer care.
Okay, next question. I'm actually going to ask all four of you. And we'll keep our answers brief since there's four of us. I'm going to start with our dean. All of you on the call today study cancer and study. Some of you may not know that our dean is a major player in understanding certain forms of cancer. Why cancer? So what drew you? What sort of pushed you in your career to pivot your work toward this incredibly horrific disease? And Dean Bradford, maybe to start with you.
So thank you. That's a great question. And I just want to thank all of the tremendous speakers today and all the participants. I've already learned a lot, and it's really important as I become closer and closer to becoming one of those older adults. Long time ago, when I was in medical school, I decided, so I'm a head and neck cancer surgeon scientist, and I actually have published a paper about the care of the head and neck cancer. My own discipline is a team sport. So the team sport aspect of tonight's conversations really resonated with me. But in medical school, I decided, again, entered medicine to help people and patients. And I, early on in medical school, had mentors, senior medical students and faculty who were providing extraordinary head and neck cancer surgical care. And I found that that was what I wanted to do. Head and neck cancer, it's how we interact with society around us. It's complex surgery around nerves, blood vessels. It's how people talk and interact, eat, swallow. And I just decided that that was the specialty for me and never changed. And patients that I have treated in my career have, been a true gift and have humbled me. And I continue to practice and really love taking care of cancer patients.
Maybe Ashley or Dr. Roscoe, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I, as a medical student, I've always loved blood cancers from the get-go. It's always been blood cancers, subspecialized in blood cancers, and that's where I found all of my first mentor said, he's like, you don't know what you want to do yet, and I said, oh no, this is what I'm going to do. But it really was defined upon how I got into aging was really focused on meeting a patient. That was kind of a defining moment for someone who was diagnosed with acute leukemia, and it was kind of right there in front of our face. And then she got whisked away to another care center, to a tertiary care center. And I think that's really how I wanted to go. But how I got into aging was really, we have many of our cases are discussed in tumor boards or census to be able to define treatment paradigms. And I think that kind of goes to one of the questions here. And everything was kind of summarized on, this patient is this years old. And behind the doors, I could say that person is so much more fit than that other person who's younger that we talked about. And so that to me was really the genesis of really wanting to get into the cancer and aging sciences.
Dr. Burd.
Yeah, so as a basic scientist, I am always thrilled to take on the most challenging question I can find. And so when learning about cancer and getting to understand that these are our own cells that are essentially attacking us, it became just fascinating. How do we as humans, attack a cancer cell, but not our own cell? How do we get our bodies to do that? And that challenge has really been what's driving me forward to understand how do we change, the milieu of our bodies to fight off this disease.
And Dr. Presley.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I think when I was in high school, actually, I went and heard Craig Venter speak about the Human Genome Project, which totally dates me. But I was captivated, and I really thought the genetics of cancer actually is what really interested me initially. And lung cancer, now we're learning it can be an incredibly genetically driven disease, right? There's one gene, EGFR is mutated, ALK is mutated, and now we have drugs targeting those specific genes that are causing the cancer. But when I was in residency, I also loved geriatrics, and I couldn't decide between geriatrics and oncology because my mother was a hospice nurse and my father was a physical therapist. So I'd been working with, I was raised by allied health professionals and saw the value in that interdisciplinary teamwork, that they participated in their teams all the time. And so then I did meet a dear person, Dr. Arthi Huria, who did both. And she was the first geriatric oncologist that I had ever met. And I didn't even know it was a discipline, but in residency, decided that that's exactly what I wanted to do. And I wanted to really specialize in improving the care for older adults with lung cancer specifically, but really a lot of the principles that we talked about applies to all cancers and even disease types outside of cancer. So something that might work for us in our clinic could even be applied to non-cancer situations. And we do have a very strong clinical geriatrics program at The Ohio State University as well. And so really coming here was completely a natural choice given the strengths that are here. But it really was sort of just an evolution over time, but we have a very finite period of time to intervene in a meaningful way. And that was very, very appealing to me.
That's exciting. So lots of questions in the chat about how folks can get involved. And so is a referral necessary, or can someone with cancer just call for an appointment, and where to call? And maybe Dr. Lesko.
Yeah, so the care clinic is actually, there are 3 models of the care clinic. So the clinic is readily available to any patient with cancer at any point. So I think that's an important part of this, is that we focus on patients at the time of their diagnosis, during their cancer trajectory, whether that's chemotherapy, radiation, targeted therapy, surgery, and then even after cancer diagnosis is complete. Because I think that's an important part that we're understanding, is that this is not just a one-time point to be able to focus on these global factors of aging. So we have a care clinic that's at the James, which is a consultative model that's readily available to the community. We also have a care clinic at the Stephanie Spielman Breast Center, led by Dr. Nicole Williams. And then on the third part of that, we also have what we call a Care PAL clinic, which focuses on cancer and aging and palliative care as a longitudinal model. I think one of the concerns is about at the end of life, being able to best care for older adults in a comprehensive way as well, to get best supportive care from that perspective as well. So we have both at several different locations, and then also those needs that are readily available. But the care clinic in itself can internal or external referrals are both accepted.
That's great. And maybe what we'll do following the WexMed Live tonight is to have the team send out some information to the folks that are on the call today, just to make sure everyone can connect. Follow up on that one for the 3 of you. All 3 of you are very, very active on campus with labs and clinics and things like that. Would the 3 of you be interested in hosting people if they're interested in learning more about your science, meeting your teams, meeting your coordinators, things like that?
Of course. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. All right. We have some ringers on the question asking session. I'm going to push this one to Dr. Burd. We've heard a lot about how advances in technology had a big impact during the pandemic, and specifically some of the methodologies around RNA-based vaccines. Is this same technology being used to approach cancer?
So sure, it's definitely being used. The idea of cancer vaccines from an RNA are definitely something that's being currently pursued. That's for sure. And I'll also say that it may be possible to target senescent cells the same way. So again, my interest in finding out what's different about a cancer cell than your healthy cell, or a senescent old cell and your healthy, proliferative, happy cell, is defining those pinch points that we can essentially then design RNAs that teach our immune system to go after those specific targets, right? And if our immune system can clear them, just like they're a virus or some other pathogen, then we're much better off. So certainly that technology is expanding and booming in many different areas.
It's exciting time to be in science. And, I think we've heard a lot from former colleagues, that presented WexMed about the great things that are happening in the Pelotonia Institute of Immuno-Oncology, and really a lot of the work dovetails. Dr. Presley, you mentioned a little bit earlier about how a lot of the things that your team is learning, the three of you and your teams, may be applied to other forms of other phenotypes associated with aging. Maybe a little bit about, we've seen this team in cancer, maybe a little bit of kind of your colleagues in other areas of aging, and how you communicate across the medical center.
Yeah, great question. So we do have some of the most up and coming aging clinicians and research scientists. So we have now 4 Beeson scholars or Beeson recipients from the National Institute of Aging, 2 of which are women and 2 of which are men. And so that, I think, is a signature that we are becoming more and more recognized by the National Institute of Aging, that we have incredible researchers and clinicians doing that work here. We have monthly meetings, and that we invite people from all over campus who are interested in aging. It doesn't necessarily have to be cancer and aging, to bounce their ideas. We talk about research, we talk about operations, all the way from the clinic, the emergency department, in the ICU, in the hospital. So really, we have colleagues in pulmonary, neurology. Again, I mentioned geriatrics, and then I would say dementia is another really important comorbidity or condition that we're also trying to evaluate even more and understand more, because we know, like frailty, it can change after a cancer diagnosis and during cancer treatment. And so there's also an aging research series that's run by the pulmonary group. And so, but we're finding more and more ways to reach across the silos, because I do think during the pandemic, that has been a particular challenge, but by hosting regular research and clinical operations meetings, I feel like we are able to continue to be connected as much as possible. And then Ashley, Christin, and I meet weekly, and along with other, it's a full team that really makes Oncogeriatrics work. So yeah.
Those of you who are online tonight can't see the chat, but if you could see the chat, lots of messages of pride toward the team tonight, and just a lot of gratitude toward the great work that you're doing. All 3 of you in your talks tonight and in your comments have talked about communication. You've talked about training. The 3 of you do everything from mentoring other faculty to graduate students. Dr. Burd teaches classes of hundreds of undergraduates. And this gets to a bigger part of our mission and vision and values at Ohio State in the College of Medicine. I was hoping, Dean Bradford, maybe if you could talk a little bit about how the education and research missions really play off each other to be able to inform the clinical mission, and some of the great things. I know you just graduated a whole new class of learners at the College of Medicine. Maybe some words on your vision and the impact on patient treatment.
Absolutely. So really, I would add, we graduated a whole huge number of learners from the College of Medicine, along with everybody else at Ohio State in this shoe, in May, and then believe it or not, the academic cycle goes pretty quickly. We also welcomed this week our new class of MD, PhD students. We welcome 7 or 8 brand new MD, PhD students every year as part of our MSTP program. So, you know, I think what's really special about academic medicine, where I've spent my entire career, is really how the clinical research and education missions really fuel one another. So education is, you know, these are our learners. That's why we are called faculty on this call: faculty physicians, faculty scientists, and faculty physician scientists. And, you know, learners really inspire us. They keep us at the top of our game. They ask us great questions. They're partners with us in care of patients, in science, and in actually educating us, even very senior faculty. I learn something new every day from our amazing learners. And then the science, really foundational science, and then applied or translational science is really the bench to the bedside aspect. And I think that's something we do better than any other academic medical center. We have enormous numbers of clinical trials, which is really how we transform the health of communities. And then our physicians, our allied health providers, our nurses, our valued staff members, we all come together in that team, that interdisciplinary team, to really provide the very, very, very best care for that patient. And it really helps us define precision or personalized care. So, you know, surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, targeted therapy, or even comfort care in certain circumstances. But we have those conversations. And I think it's really fascinating to think about now, not only the treatment, but what about nutrition? What about physical activity? And will that actually improve your outcome? And what we're learning from our amazing colleagues tonight is that it will. And so it really takes a village, it takes a team. And people at Ohio State Wexner Medical Center, the James, and the Comprehensive Cancer Center are really here because they've devoted their careers to really transforming care of patients, populations, and communities.
If we were to look behind your red honeycomb, we would see the new Health Science College, the old Hamilton Hall that's turning into the new College of Medicine. Opening date for that, Dean Bradford?
So the anatomy wing is already open, I think, and then the classroom wing, which is really the interdisciplinary extraordinary wing, where all sorts of members of the healthcare professional team can come together with those important, distinct perspectives to apply to care and research as well. That's opening soon. And then I think final wing is the beautiful old Hamilton Hall will be a great new College of Medicine space and meeting space, wellness spaces, student learner spaces, and informal interaction spaces. And that will all be live in 2025.
That's great. It's really exciting. And if you've not been by this part of Columbus, a lot of cranes, and everyone talks about the cranes, but lots of incredible, talented physician scientists and scientists, as you've seen tonight. I'm a scientist as well, and I cannot overstate how talented this team. This is one of the best aging teams in the country, and to be able to have these 3 colleagues at Ohio State, the future is incredibly bright. I do want to ask the 3 of you, when you think about growing your programs, what are the bottlenecks? So, all of these exciting things that are happening, what is it that could get you to the next level? What is it that could help you have that next aha or eureka moment to do new discoveries? And please, all 3 of you can just jump in.
I could go first, I guess. So when I was, when I think about what would be my long-term vision, this optimal pie in the sky idea, it would be something like total cancer care, where essentially we're, consenting almost every cancer patient that comes in that wants to participate and study to understand the genomics and evolution of their disease. But instead, we're going to look at aging biomarkers and we're going to follow their physical function, and we're really going to provide that comprehensive care. So what if every single person that was seen here at the Wexner Medical Center had a comprehensive evaluation or aging biomarkers done? What would we learn? And so, the cost of doing something like that is really what's preventing us from going that far. But it would be amazing. I think we would discover all kinds of new things that would really prolong the healthy lives of all of our patients.
That's great. Dr. Presley.
Yeah, that's a great question and really fun to think about. So I do think about it in terms of the clinical side, but then also the research side, because they're so my dad would say intermingled, twined. But so I would envision sort of a way that we could screen every older adult who's coming in to get care and then deliver that personalized intervention to optimize their quality of life and improve their frailty status and avoid functional decline right at that first point of care. And so that would require taking a half a day a week clinic, which is the care clinic, to a 5-day a week operation, but that requires specialized staff, right? Highly trained allied health professionals, geriatric APPs. It requires quite an upfront investment to really be able to offer that high level of personalized care to every patient who steps across our threshold. And so, I think it has the possibilities of also raising up the non-cancer aging disciplines as well, and having a space where anyone interested in aging can be and think and collaborate to get that important work done. And so it does require a significant investment to expand, because the clinical side and the research side, because that's such a strength that the three of us combine, we really need to do both together. And so that would be that we would really be able to tailor it right at the beginning of the point of care and really try and prevent exactly what we saw happen with Gloria and cure more cancer.
That's great. And then Dr. Roscoe.
And I think what you hear from our team is that, we really want to be an agency of change, to be able to integrate geroscience with oncogeriatric initiatives. This type of work to integrate clinical and biologic resources require, investment in infrastructure and informatics and personnel and resources. We're all, in the lab and seeing patients. And at the same time, we are investing in the next generation with medical students, allied health professionals, with residents and fellows, to be able to teach things that we're doing here at Ohio State and also nationally. So integrating the clinical side, the teaching side, and then the outreach. One of the last things I just want to close with, none of this can happen without clinical trials, and being able to get clinical trials to older adults is really an important part, an integral part of what we do. That reach into the community, that reach into the resources is really an important area for growth for the oncogeriatric program.
That's great. Really, really, really well said. Let's see, we have another, we'll ask one more science question and before we wrap up. So there's a question about DNA methylation, and for the audience, let's talk a little bit about what maybe that means. So we all have our genes, and we have these letters of our DNA that really sort of form the blueprint of a lot of our bodies. But on these genes, we've learned that there's basically frosting that you can put on top of these genes that's based on exercise and age. It's based on things like smoking and other risk factors. And so I'm going to address this one to Dr. Burd and ask, when you think about DNA methylation levels in biological age, is there a connection that sort of helps you tip the scale one way or the other in terms of biomarkers?
So a lot of the work that's being done with methylation and age is looking at the locations across the genome where this frosting is placed. So we all have methylation in our cells. It's normal. It tells what a cell it gives it its identity. It tells, a neuron that it's a neuron and a skin cell that is a skin cell. But what happens as we age is some of the frosting starts to get shifted around. And some really cool bioinformatics techniques have looked at large data sets about where all this frosting is going over time. And what they're doing is they're using, the differential placement of the frosting to estimate how old someone is. So they're looking at the correlation between where the frosting is located and their age. So we're still trying to figure out which one of the algorithms that have been identified by the community might be the best at predicting outcomes. But what I can say is that there are a lot of different algorithms being developed, and the only way to know one works well in your group or cohort is to actually study it and pair it with the clinical information. And that's what's been lacking. We have not had that pairing of clinical information and biomarkers like this methylation. And so our group has been very popular with a lot of different biomarker companies who are interested in understanding what does it mean when the frosting goes like this or like that. And that's where we're, having that pairing of clinical and basic science is just absolutely critical so that we can understand this better.
And you can really see, how the work that you're doing here at Ohio State has such a huge impact on where the field is headed. I mean, you see why Dr. Burd is one of the most popular educators at Ohio State. But really, there's a lot of interest, not only in academia, but also in industry for understanding the frosting, right? And how it's going to be able to help us understand the next step. So we're going to close in a second. Before we close, and Dean Bradford knows this question that's about to come, but the rest of you don't, which is in a sentence, what are you most excited about sort of in the next 5 or 10 years? And we talked a little bit about this earlier, but by being at Ohio State, what is it that gets you up every day when it's 95 degrees in Wexner? What drives you? And I'm going to start with our dean, Dean Bradford.
So great question. So it's really about the great people here at Ohio State, are incredible supporters. And it's about the patients, families, and communities we serve. This is we are on an incredible trajectory to really, as we say, transform the health of our communities that we serve for the better. And we're on a trajectory like no other. And it is really, really an exciting place to be right now.
Dr. Roscoe.
I mean, clinic is my favorite part of the day. That's why I'm here. And I think I'm lucky to be able to do what I love to do and to be able to take, an interesting question and be able to right size therapy for patients. And so, I think I feel very fortunate on what gets me up every day. I love coming to clinic. I love taking care of my patients. I love meeting their families and being able to improve their longevity, to be able to improve their health span, to be able to address their cancer. That's why I'm here.
That's great. Dr. Burd.
I wake up and think, tackle that challenge, improve lives, and teach the next generation.
And Dr. Presley.
I think I wake up every day and know that I feel very supported, and that if I can dream it, I can build it here. And this is one of the best times for innovation here at Ohio State. And we can really lead the path forward and bring everyone along with us. And that's a really exciting time for me.
And I would just add on mine, which is, being able to work with colleagues like the three of you really gives me hope that we're really focusing on science that going to impact a lot of people. So just incredibly grateful to the three of you for all the work that you do every day, your ability to work together, to put aside your own programs to think about how you work together and have the best outcomes. Dean Bradford, always appreciative of your leadership and leading us tonight. And for all of you who joined us tonight, want to thank you so much for your support. If you're interested in supporting the three teams tonight, please let us know. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about their programs, all three mentioned they're happy to set up lab tours or coffees. So please let us show you more. This was just an introduction. So with that, I want to thank you all for joining our 16th WexMed. There will be a short, brief survey at the end that helps us continue to get better at these. And with those, I will say, for those of you who were out without power tonight, this will be taped and you'll be able to watch it later. And want to thank you all for joining us tonight. Have a safe evening. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.